Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined, they're built brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neal Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neal and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The Big Life starts now.
Well, welcome back. Or if you're here for the first time, welcome. We're so glad to have you to the Big Life Podcast with Neal Jr. Neal, how are you, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Right now, I'm doing fantastic. We'll see how I'm doing at the end of this episode, Robin.
Yes, sir. We have a great topic for you, for our listeners today. And my name is Robin Lewis. And, you know, we're have you noticed that people are mentally drained? Maybe you yourself feel that way. Certainly, I know that you know people around you who are. In fact, I've heard that it's actually becoming a very high concerning number, that a large percentage of our population, of our society, are experiencing mental and emotional fatigue. That people aren't just physically tired, they're mentally overloaded. And we want to talk a little bit about that today. You know, Neal, when you think about that, you know, that idea, that concept, what comes to your mind, first of all? Let's just start there.
Well, thank you for setting this up the way you did, Robin. The first thing that comes to my mind is the difference of what you said. There's one thing to be mentally and emotionally fatigued versus just being physically tired, right? Many of us, we can deal with the physical exhaustion. We can deal with, okay, I need to take a nap. Right? I need to go get water. I need to sit down for a moment. And for our listeners, we're not discounting that. We know that we've been there, but that is the least, that is the smallest type. What really comes to my mind is, one, the awareness or the lack of awareness, Robin, of mental and emotional exhaustion, right? Because if I'm being honest, my parents did not raise me to think about mental fatigue or exhaustion. It was just, well, you'll be okay. Just everything was just rest, take a nap, and you'll be okay. It was not about the weight and the pressure. So I think for many of us and many of our listeners, Robin, we need to become aware that maybe this feeling you have is not a physical fatigue. Maybe it's not just being tired. Maybe it's not just needing a day off. Maybe it really is something that's bigger than that, but that's going to come from awareness and asking the right questions. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind, Robin.
Man, I love the way you jump right into it, you know, because you bring up a good point. Do you think people today are carrying more mentally than they actually realize?
I mean, they have to, simply because we have more mentally than, like, our phones as much. And we talked about AI, we talk about technology, we know the need for it, but there's so much that's coming to us. Robin, let me pause here. One of the reasons I think that we're carrying more than we realize is because we never slow down to analyze what we are carrying. Some of us, we put our backpack on and we started walking the trail. And then Monday came and work dropped something into our backpack or into our sack. And then Tuesday came and it dropped something into our bag. And then by the time we get to Thursday, we still think that we're carrying the same bag, but Wednesday, life, family, you know, bills, social media, all these things have just been dropping added weight and pressure on us. And we never pause to say, well, what's in my bag? And we're talking about from the mental, emotional side of it, right? Not thinking that I've dealt with fear, concern, worry, lack, stress, familial issues. And we just never pause long enough, Robin, to even analyze what we're carrying. So I think that it's a no-brainer. But when I say it's a no-brainer, that also means that we aren't thinking about it.
Yeah. And hey, listen, thank you for sharing that. And I think we can talk a little bit about that just to kind of help bring awareness. Like Neal, while you were talking, guess what just happened, right? my phone rang, my alarm went off. I mean, those two things just happened while you were speaking, right? And so we have this constant availability now that we might not realize is happening. Like we're constantly connected. People can text us, WhatsApp us, TikTok us, social media. We get those pop-ups, like LinkedIn, is every so often a jobs thing, or this person posted this or this person posted that, and all these various different notifications that we are connected to. We are constantly available, and we might not realize that we are.
Robin, hold on. Before you say that, before you go to your next point, I think that many of us also, we have been raised. I have a good pulse on our audience demographics. Many of us have been raised to work harder, to go longer, to, wake up earlier, take fewer naps, drink more coffee, more energy drinks. And we're saying we're not lazy, right? We're not slacking. You're not listening to the Big Life podcast because you're a slacker. It just does not happen. But you still feel like, man, I'm still behind, Robin. And then the more we think about what we have to do or what's coming at us, the lower and the lower and the lower we get. So I just want people to, we know that it's not because you aren't doing enough. We know it's not because you're lazy. We know that it is because you just aren't aware of what you're carrying.
Yeah. And there's so much that adds to it. There's more to add to that list. I talked a little bit about social media, but that encourages comparison. We're very much in a culture of comparison, and so we're always seeing what the others are doing, and we're thinking about where we are in regards to, or in comparison to, where they are, and because of the ease of access, and not just ease of access, but the forcing on us, just by way of this little instrument that we have here and the other instruments that we use. People have the eyeglasses now. I was with somebody the other day, and they're doing so much with their eyeglasses, and their eyeglasses talking to them and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's even foreign to me, by the way. I've never actually tried one of those on. But it's like there's so many different instruments that we have now that brings this information to us. We're constantly receiving bad news, right? Have you noticed, Neal, how whenever something happens that is bad news, we just tend to ride that, and you hear about it from all different angles, and you're seeing it all over the place, and then people are posting about it, and the news people are going around and round and round about it. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. And I read this story, or there was this example, and I want us to think about it. If we're driving, we're here in South Florida, if we're driving on any one of the fives, whether it is 75, 595, 95, 3, or 195, and if there is an accident, horrible, possible, terrible, or chance of loss of life, or at the least property damage, the road will be backed up with rubberneckers who are looking at bad news, who we can't help. We're frustrated. We're cursing the people who are in front of us. Robin, why don't they just hurry up? I'm late. But then what do we do when we get there? We look at the bad news instead of minding our business and keep going. However, every evening, God gives us this beautiful sunset, and you can see the sunset, especially if you're on 595, and the color in the sky and the clouds. And no one slows down to look at the good news. No one slows down to take in or to take the photo, or we're still rushing through that. And so I think that is one of the best examples of what happens to these bad news cycles and our draw to this thing, not realizing the overload that we're giving our minds, that we're giving our hearts. And then if I see one thing bad, if I receive or read one bad news, where's my mind going to go? I can only speak for Neal. Once I get the bad, then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's horrible. And then I scroll up. And now there's this thing with, I think that if you say pause on something, the more you say pause on something, immediately before you swipe up or over, the algorithm has changed what you're going to see next. And it's going to be similar to what you paused on for a few seconds. And so I think that bad news cycle is one of the most detrimental things to our psyches, Robin.
Yeah, man. And, I think so. The point is, listeners, is that we have more information at our fingertips than ever. We have more stuff coming our way. But if we stop to think about it, we have less peace than ever as well.
Robin, how hurtful is it to say that, right? Because we know that with information, with great power comes great responsibility. With more information, more education, the opportunities, yes, increase. But you just said we have less peace than we've ever had. Think about, and we were talking about our ancestors, right? Our ancestors had next to nothing compared to what we have, but they had everything compared to the peace that we don't have today. That's a hard place for us to be in 2026, Rob.
Yeah, and for our listeners, we if you're feeling that way right now, we're not insensitive to that. We've been there. I remember telling Neal just the end of last year how I really felt the need to just kind of get away by myself, just put away everything else and just kind of be by myself. I wanted to be close to some nature, whether it was a mountain or the beach or even beside a lake or something like that where I could just kind of get away from things. I just needed to pause and relax, right? So we've all experienced this, right? And so we're not insensitive if that's where you are right now. What we're suggesting to you and to all of our listeners is that there are things that we can do, that we need to do, that we need to be aware of so that we can have that peace. And so we're going to talk about some things that we think can bring help to you. We've all been there. Neal, you ever been emotionally exhausted? I mean, I know the answer. You and I have talked about this before, right? How about the pressure of leadership? Where, you remember that John Maxwell, he makes this funny. I don't really know if he has this book, but
Man,
he's
I
making
know
a
he
point.
has it.
He's making a point with this. And that is, he says that he's written a book that he will not. This is a guy who's published 92 books and sold over 40 million copies. And he's written a book a leadership book that he will not publish until he dies. It will not get published until he dies. So he says, if you see the title of this book and you're walking in the airport one day and you see this title, it means John Maxwell is gone. And so he, of course, what's that? What's the title of the book? And so the title of the book is Leadership Sucks. I mean, come on, man. As a leader, we're listeners, as leaders, you have pressure. There's no 2 good consecutive days in a leader's life. There's no 2 good consecutive days in a leader's life. So you're going to experience fatigue, pressure, overload, exhaustion, and so we're sharing with you today things that you can do about that, right? Before we go on, Neal, anything to add?
So the one that I want to add is that yes, leadership does have pressure. We know that pressure can be a good thing. We've heard that pressure, either the same thing that creates diamonds also bursts pipes, right? So we know all of the little cute sayings. But for me, I hear this and I'm always thinking about myself. And I know many of you are like me, where we always have that pressure to perform, to always feel like we have to do the next and we have to be on. And so in that, Robin, I know we're going to talk about some things that they can do, but I know I've had to ask the question to myself, how do I rest? And so to you, I'm going to pose a question. Do you think that people even know how to rest anymore? We're not talking about just laying down, taking a nap. Do you believe that we know how to rest as achievers, as strivers, as those who are seeking out the big life?
Yeah, so I can speak for myself and then what I observe too, like even something like physical rest, it is so important to my mental clarity and even physical rest. So I have to be very intentional about making sure I get enough rest. I think physical rest is a big part of it. But yeah, no, the mental rest is also a big deal. And we are going to talk about that. And just before we go on, I kind of hyped on leadership pressure, but there's so much other pressure that we are feeling, that we are experiencing. It's if you're a parent or even a grandparent, if you're trying to keep up with things, if you're feeling like you're behind, you're getting pressure from social media, you're getting financial pressure. So there's all different types of pressures that we are experiencing. And so Neal, I think when we talk about staying, getting this mental rest, I think here's where we can talk practical with with our clients, right? With our audience right now, customer, clients, with our listeners, with our family. Yes, sir. Tell me.
Robin, really quickly, you talked about the importance of physical rest, right?
Yes.
In your
Yes.
mental. Here's where my challenge is, and I know we're going to get practical, but my challenge is needing to rest physically and mentally, taking a physical break, but the more I sit down and relax and give my body what it needs, the more my mind is racing. And
Yeah.
now I'm thinking, okay, I didn't do this, or this is going to happen, or even though I'm doing what I need to, and I know I need to physically, that's when my mind becomes my biggest enemy at times, Robin. And now how do we manage this? And some of you are like, Neal, I'm right there with you, because I sit down for a moment, and then the first thing is not, oh, it feels good to sit down. It's, can you afford to do this? You still have A, B, F, D, all this stuff to do. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we hear you. We understand you. We are still trying to figure this out ourselves.
Yes. So, all right. So, as we jump to this now, one of the things we want you to hear is this word margin. First of all, I think we need to build margin into everything that we do, our time, our calendar, our finances. Just build margin. And then the other thing that we want to share with you is that we need to consider that clarity requires space. Neal and I have talked about this a lot, but especially on this very topic, we're suggesting that we need time to reflect. We need time for prayer. We need time to just be quiet and be still. We need to have thinking time. We need to create boundaries. And so these are things that if we don't put them in there first, then they tend to not happen. And these are the things that are going to help us to get this mental reset that we need.
Robin, you mentioned how we had a discussion at the end of last year that what aided in your mental reset was getting into the right environment. I know you are big in getting close to nature. I'm the same way. And so I know for me, it is getting outside. If I start feeling down, like mentally, if I need a mental reset, I just need to get outside. It doesn't matter how hot it is, doesn't matter if it's raining, it can be freezing cold. I just need to get outside. And for me, it is taking in the enormity of the universe, right? Seeing what God created and realizing that my problems, and I'm not discounting our problems, my problems and all this vastness isn't as big as I think it was, right? Me seeing a bird, something that really helps me is if I can get outside and see a bird and know that God is taking care of the bird. Or wife and I, we just planted some wildflowers in our backyard, and knowing that God cares about us more than the wildflowers and they don't have to do anything. So that's what I'm using to mentally reset. So I'm asking the audience, what actually helps you mentally reset? Do you know what it is? Have you even taken the time? Or is this the first time you're being asked that question? Because as we started this episode, Robin and I are aware that many of us did not grow up thinking about mental rejuvenation. We were not taught or trained on how to take care of ourselves emotionally to get refilled. So, Robin, besides you and Mother Nature, is there something else that helps you get a mental and emotional reset, sir?
Yeah, playing pickleball helps me.
Hold on right there. Now that is a physical, like that is an exertion, like physically exhausting. It requires exertion, but that is a mental reset for you.
Yes, sir. Without a doubt, somebody was questioning me there. It was on my day of rest my Sabbath, if you will. And I was telling them I was going to go play pickleball. Yeah, you're going to play pickleball? And yeah, that's a way of rest for me. Kind of, I don't know, it relieves tension. It just gets my mind off of things. I'm kind of honed in and tuned in. It's like golf for you, sir. It's the same type of thing that it does for me. So yes, that is one. But I'm very, Neal, you know this already, but for our listeners' benefit, I'm going to share. I'm very big on daily reflection. I'm very big on weekly review and reflection, taking time to just kind of stop. So I daily take time to think and reflect and pray and so on. Right? I journal, and those types of things really help me to kind of slow down. And the point that we're making to you is that if we don't do that, then we lose connection with ourselves. And that's so important. And so that if we are not connected like that to ourselves, that's when the mental fatigue will actually kick in. As leaders, Neal, there's a lot of stuff that we're dealing with, right? I mean, as leaders, we are intentionally, living. We're going in a direction. We're vision planning. We're goal setting. We're going after it, right? There's a lot of things coming our way. We're protecting attention. What gets our attention? We're trying to stay in touch with what matters most. We're trying to remain present for the people that we are with. I don't know if I shared this with you, Neal. The other day, I had a little time in a parking lot where I wasn't fully present, and I kind of just I met somebody for the first time, and I did not make a good first impression because I wasn't present. We need to be present, right? And so there's a lot of things that we need for us to be connected with ourselves. There's a lot of things that need for us to be there, to be ready. And so have healthy rhythms in our that we're working on. We're choosing what comes into our mind and what comes into our calendar and so on, right?
Absolutely. And Robin, for me, I just want to share two practical things that have made it easier for me and better and helps me show up as a better person. Number one, I just intentionally attempt to limit my phone time. And I know you all think that Neal and Robin are the old guys out here screaming, get off my lawn, get off my grass. But for me, just limiting the phone time for me. And it's not because that is evil or because it's bad, but it's a doorway to my life, right? To my peace. And so I try to limit that. But then the next one for me is protecting my mornings, Robin. I always keep a lot of my day is spent here in my office. I have my Bible, I have my journal here. And so these stay on my desk. Because in the mornings, this is where I will come into my office, grab my Bible and my journal, and then I will either sit in my sunroom or I will go outside early in the morning. And that's where I can control my pace. That's where I can say, okay, well, let me think about what I want to get done today. So less phone time, protect my mornings, make sure that I'm playing offense mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so I was just curious, what are some practical things that you do in addition to the journaling that has really helped you, or maybe some things that you want to encourage our audience to do, Robin?
Yeah, Neal, those are good. I can talk about those two also. I will tell you that I'm that guy. Yeah, Rob, you are that guy. I'm that guy when people say less phone time, like Neal, I have my Bible on here. A lot of the like when I review and I reflect, I have questions on here that and by the way, for those of you who are just listening and not seeing, I'm holding up my phone to Neal. And for those who are watching us, I have a lot of that information that I use even on my reflection time on my phone. And Chris Hodges challenged me on a podcast that he did recently that when you wake up in the morning, he intentionally does not go to his phone, and he goes to some other things that sort of grounding himself in prayer and reading the Bible and these types of things first, because the idea is to put the first things first. And I struggle with that. I'm that guy that rationalized, well, I have the Bible here.
It's the Bible. It's the Bible. Come on,
You know
this is
what I
my God
realized?
time.
You know what I realized, Neal, is that I do get distracted. There's You can't be on here that you don't see some sort of, and even when I turn off my notifications, you still, there is a tendency here that we have to be very careful about. And so I think, another thing that he does is at a certain time of in the night before he goes to bed, he puts the phone away. I think you do the same thing. I think I've heard you say
Yes,
that.
sir.
So less phone time, folks, is what we are suggesting from somebody who
So
actually
hold
struggles
on,
with that a
Robin.
little bit.
Here's where I want to ask you this practically, because now someone has just identified they're listening to your voice, but they are hearing themselves speak to themselves. They're
Yeah.
saying, but this is my Bible. This is my note app. This is where I come in and I do my reflection. This is where I find and I put that structure in place so that I can mentally have peace. I understand and I know the impact that Chris Hodges has in your life. How do you deal with? Because when I'm talking to Robin, and Robin's going to answer, but you might be speaking on behalf or to someone who's listening to us. How do you deal with hearing from someone that you value their opinion in Chris Hodges? You value their perspective, and you know that there is some truth to what he says versus what's comfortable and that justification, as you mentioned, to your system and that you have. Because I know systems are important. How do you find yourself? How do you battle in that, sir? Because that's what I want to know. So thank you for being transparent with us. But come on, give it to me, big sir. Come on, what you got?
So, sir, one thing, for those who are not watching but just listening, I just grabbed my Bible, and so I am reading more from the paper, the book Bible now than I have before, and I'm turning out, I'm putting my phone on do not disturb. I'm trying to not, I haven't gotten there where I'm doing this fully yet, because truly I do have a lot, like one of the things I do every day is I think about and I list down what I'm grateful for. And I'm putting that in my phone, right? And so I started writing that down in my journal now instead, but I still find sometimes the struggle of wanting to put it in my phone. What I would suggest, based upon where I'm at right now, and I haven't conquered it, I'm still one of that guy that still struggles with that a little bit, is, you can put your phone on airplane mode also. And so you're really kind of just turning a lot of that connection off. If you have things in there that you are using for what you do in the morning, protecting your mornings, then maybe that's a route that you can go. But if we can really just not there are times where I just leave it. I leave it and I go to my thinking chair. My phone is in my bedroom. Those times are still rich. I don't miss anything. I can do it without having the phone. And so that would be my challenge. I think also, recognize that we do need times of solitude. We need to just be still. We need to be quiet. We need to schedule that in. I talked about margin. We need to give ourselves margin for that. We need to be very intentional about conversations, having conversations with people that refill you. Neil and I meet once a month.
I was just about to say, sir, come on.
Come on, sir.
No, that's it. Go ahead, break it down, because I can tell you that has been something, ladies and gentlemen, that Robin and I have been meeting once a month for, I believe, a couple of years now. We got to the point where we started filling our conversation time with recording podcasts. And then I came to you, I said, Robin, listen, this is not working for me. And you're like, what? I'm like, dude, this is great. But that time, that conversation would refill me so that then we can show up on the podcast and give our audience what they need. And here's what I love. You said, I'm glad you said that, because I was feeling the same way. Because we're trying to be efficient with our time. We're trying to make sure that we're considerate and respectful of each other. But then the greatest thing that you can do oftentimes is just have conversation with people who are aligned with you. No agenda other than let me pour into you. Let us pour into each other. And that has been priceless for me, Robin.
So, listeners, we know we're not talking anything new to you. Let just be an encouragement and a challenge to you to schedule these things, right? Create boundaries. Have these times that we're talking about on your calendar. Block them, right? Protect them. And, make sure that you are being very intentional about having less of the noise and the distraction in your life. Neal, as we wrap this up, a couple of things that I would encourage our listeners to consider, reflect on is what is draining me mentally? What is
Hold on, Robin. You
draining
do
you?
know and I'm going to ask you to repeat that question once again, and these are going to be in our show notes. But for many of us, that's the very first time that someone has given us permission to ask that question, right? Because usually it's keep going, do what's better. And go ahead and pose that question to us one more time, please.
So yeah, what is draining me mentally? And then another question we're going to have you ask is, what voices am I allowing into my life? What voices am I allowing into my life? When was the last time I truly slowed down? Folks, when was the last time? So you've heard us talk about it, you get it. But when was the last time I actually slowed down? And if it hasn't been recently, then there's your next step. And another good one is, what rhythms restore me? We talked about protecting our mornings, solitude, right? Conversations. Like what rhythms restore me? That's what we want you to consider. And then if you find any gaps, just think about the next one that you can address. Just take that next step. We don't have to have it all figured out, as Neal and I always say. Here's the point. You can't build the big life. You can't build the meaningful life with a constantly fragmented mind. That's what we want you to think about. That's what we want you to be aware of. That if we're not intentional about it, our mind is going to be overloaded. And so that's what we want you guys to think about today. Answer those questions. Neal, before we close it out, anything to add, sir?
One, I want to tell you thank you for the conversation. I mentioned before we start recording that I am still blown away that God is using two guys just having a conversation to make such a big impact. So I am humbled to be here with you. And then I also want to report that I feel good at the end of this episode. Remember, we started out, I was like, I feel good now. I don't know how I'm going to feel after this. But the reason I feel good is because it has reassured me that I'm doing some things right. And it has given me some ideas, some questions to ask of myself to myself so that I can go in and improve. And so I thought that when I look at the topic of why so many people are mentally exhausted, it was easy for me to think that the conversation could go into well, it's because you aren't doing this. It's because you're not good enough. It's because this. But this conversation helped me realize that, yes, we're doing good. Maybe we need to do less. Maybe we need to just be intentional. So it's giving me a place and some things to go and to consider. And I will be adding more margin into my life. So thank you, Robin, for sharing that with me.
Right on. It's always a pleasure and a blessing to be here with you, sir. And I trust our listeners feel the same way. Please like our podcast, follow it, subscribe it if you haven't done that already. We would be greatly appreciative if you do that. It kind of helps pass this message on to others, and it ensures that you'll get the next episode as it drops. And we're going to close it out as we always do. Remember, God loves you. We love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time, Neal, anything to add there?
We see you or you see us. We're right there with you.
Peace.
Peace.
Right on.